Alright, here we are with the Ancient Gods Part 2, the second and final DLC released for Doom Eternal. The reveal of this DLC is still something I vividly remember. I was seeing people talking about whether we were actually going to get a Part 2 or where the trailer was. The trailer came out on March 17th, and then the DLC came out the next day. I've gotten tired of companies, especially video game companies, releasing trailers like the day before something is released, but to give credit to id and Bungie, it does help initiate hype more than it usually would. The DLC released and it was, well, it wasn't badly received, but it was definitely in the 50-50. Considering the difficulty of Part 1, it was kind of surprising Part 2 would be the opposite. As for me, I liked it. I had some gripes with it, like the decrease in difficulty, some of the new enemies, and the final boss fight, which took me way longer than it should have. But what do I think of the DLC now? Well, let's see. In the end of Part 1, the Doomslayer decided not to revive the Father, but instead the Dark Lord, as defeating him will stop Hell's invasion, so that's what the Slayer tries. The goal is to head to Emora and finally end this battle. So hi, my name is Solar, and this is the Ancient Gods Part 2. The Slayer's goal now is to survive so he can get to the Dark Lord in Emora, the capital of Hell. We're sent to the World Spear, a location in Argent du Nord, as the name says, has a massive spear piercing the planet and it looks beautiful. The level itself already shows how easy this will be, with only having Hell Soldiers, a Mancubus in the beginning, unlike in Part 1 where you were thrown in with some of the most toughest enemies in the game. I said that in Part 1 that the newer enemies introduced in the DLC are 50-50 with how they're implemented, but it starts off well with a cool addition, starting with the Screecher. These zombies are differentiated by their purple aura. If they're shot in any way, they explode and release the Screecher buff, which is a temporary buff totem-like buff. I'm unsure if the Shockwave mod from the support rooms also sparks the Screecher, but I like them since it makes me more careful with which enemies to attack. We rescue a Mountain Dew Dog, and we get a small section of Horde modes like we got in the Blood Swamps of Part 1. After that section, we get the Armored Barons, probably the overall best edited enemy. The Baron has armor that can't be broken by normal fire. The only way to make it vulnerable is to break its, handball? Yeah, let's go with that. To break its armor. You will only have a few seconds to actually hurt the enemy before it recharges its armor. It acts basically like an armored marauder, but I mean that by having to attack at the right time, and it doesn't help that the Barons are already one of my favorite enemies. I have no idea what happened here, but I thought you guys would like it. I don't have much to talk about other than what happens in the other half of this level. I forgot I had Empowered Demons on when I was going through this. Empowered Demons are interesting. They were originally much stronger enemies that spawned in that would originally have a name of a player that died to that demon. As of Update 2, however, these guys were dramatically nerfed, and they just exist as a relic of what could have been. Despite the ease, I'm really liking this level. The level setting is one of my favorites. I've always liked the aesthetics of the areas in Argent du Nord, though I do ask how there was a spear in the planet and how that didn't affect, everything around it. However, there's one bit that I hate about this level, and it's this section. Having the entire platform be covered in purple goo is just annoying. Thankfully, it's not that tough, and of course you can use the meat hook to traverse through, but I'm still gonna complain about it because I can. After using a BFG with quad damage, which can only be described as overkill, we find Commander Velen as a Spectre? Okay. He thanks us for helping to put his son back to rest and rewards us with the Sentinel Hammer. But before we talk about the hammer, I want to talk about Valen. He appears similar to how King Nova did in the base game. We know Valen is alive since we see him chilling in a cave, and spoiler alert, we do see him later on in this DLC. So that does bring me to ask if King Novik is actually alive, and if so, where is he? I'm probably overthinking this, but I'm the kind of guy who can't get enough sleep because I think of these kinds of questions at night. Back to the main topic, the Sentinel Hammer. This is what makes Part 2 super easy. To charge the hammer, you have to get glory kills, but you can also break enemies' critical spots to charge it. When using the hammer, you stagger some of the major enemies. It also drops health and ammo from any demon. This thing is broken. I swear if this was in Part 1, it would probably not be as tough as it is now. As for its inclusion, I like it. I like things that are kind of like overpowered. I will say it does sometimes make the saw kind of useless because of how easily this thing can charge up, but overall I like its implementation in the game. As we go through the level, we get a new enemy, the Stone Imps. If you remember from the spirits, which you will see in this DLC as well, these enemies are weak to a specific mod. For the Imps, it's weak to the full auto shotgun mod. I'm honestly unsure of how to feel about this guy. guy. On one hand, the full auto mod isn't half bad. I definitely saw its use when getting ammo with kills. It really helped me out when I went through the horde mode for the first time. On the other hand, the lore reason for the auto mod being the stone imp's weakness is stupid. The codex of the enemy goes as follows. The new hide of the stone imp is impenetrable to most known weapons. Only rapid multi-vibrations or the crushing force of a sentinel hammer can damage their rocky exterior. If that's the case, then why isn't the mobile turret for the chain gun its weakness? The Slayer reaches to the Torch of Kings. Lighting the torch will show the remaining sentinels that someone seeks passage to the World Spear.
Priests forbid the use of this beacon. If there are any remaining free tribes left in Argentinor, all will see this light and know what your mission is here.
We are still a day's walk away from the World Spear.
It thankfully works, and we get to ride a goddamn dragon. This game is fantastic and no one can tell me otherwise.
It seems you're not the only one who wants this mission accomplished. If you defeat the Dark Lord, any demon outside of hell would be destroyed.
The next part of this level has you traverse through the level, and it reminded me of something that I'm genuinely surprised wasn't a part of the main game. Grapple points. Using the super shotgun's meat hook, you can traverse through the level and it feels really nice. In this level, we get the gore nest back. Unlike in part 1, the nest here act like in 2016, where you have to go through a horde attack to continue. Every gore nest gives a power up to the sentinel hammer. This power up has demons drop more ammo when stunned. You can activate the gore nest again for a more challenging attack, but the reward is only a skin.
He is worthy.
Here we are in the World Spear, and I do not remember this place being covered in eyes. The inside is also as unexpected, as it seems that there are some beings in some of these pods. These are actually wraiths. They were beings that were captured and tortured so their essence could be used to make Argent energy. I do have one complaint in that it really felt like there was supposed to be more here, but all you do is just platform. Kind of disappointing, but the Slayer gets a shard of the ship's power source and he travels back to Earth, getting ready to power the gate of Devoom, or Divio. I don't know what it's called.
You have the key to the gate of Devoom. I will mark its location.
Here we are, back on Earth. Despite the fact that there's a hell invasion going on, Earth looks really nice. What isn't nice is this guy, the Cursed Prowler. They act similar to the original Prowlers, but these guys are way more annoying. When you're struck by their poison, you get debuffed, and you can't use things like the target lock with the rocket launcher, the meat hook of the super shotgun, but the worst is that you cannot dash. So having to get close to it to blood punch it, which is its weakness, to get rid of the debuff is absolutely annoying. This enemy sucks. But the good things are that the Prowler has a blood punch symbol and you can usually see where it is throughout an arena, and according to the fandom wiki, these guys only appear 3 times. The goal of the level is to head to the gate of Devoom, which will help us head to Amora. Throughout the level, you'll also meet riot soldiers. They're like hell soldiers, but their shields can't be broken, so the best thing to use here is just grenades or the launcher to attack from behind. This guy, he's fine. Compared to the others, and especially the next, this enemy feels like a decent add-on. The last thing I want to talk about is the Gore Nest, because the award is another upgrade to the hammer, because now health and shield drops by defeated enemies increases. You know, I did say that I'm not sure how I feel about it, but the more I use it, the more I like it. There are some other topics I want to talk about before the last level, so let's do this really quickly. First off, this Pinky is pretty funny. Secondly, the fact that we get to punch a train but it barely moves is incredibly disappointing. And finally, and mostly the main thing I wanted to talk about, the soundtrack. Despite the fact that I like Part 1's soundtrack more, Part 2 is an overall upgrade and really sounds like Andrew Hoschel and David Levy were let to do what they want, and it's great. However, this brought something which was once concerning. When Part 2 was released, the main theme was changed. On its own, it's not a bad track, but the fact it changed a piece from Mick Gordon's work worried some people like it was gonna want to remove Mick's work altogether. Thankfully, now we can change the main menu to whatever you like. But now we activate the gate and we reach the last level of Doom Eternal, the capital of hell, Amora.
The Dark Lord is there, waiting for you. He will not allow the city to be overtaken. Like you, he will fight to the end.
This intro, man, I remember seeing it for the first time and it's still just as good as I remember. The capital is ready for the Slayer, with massive ships, these hell soldiers, and of course the demons. The funny thing is though, the Slayer can absolutely take them all out, even with just his fist. But hey, there's nothing wrong with some extra help. Valen comes in through some portals, bringing with him the entire Sentinel army, and it's insane. We even get giant freaking mechs. I do question how he was able to open up a portal if the Gate of Devoom was the only way to get to the Portal of Hell, but I don't care right now. This was pretty much like the final battle of Avengers Endgame, but if anything, this section reminds me of the Doom 64 opening. Anyone else? The way the demons appear here just reminded me of that opening. Still, this whole section is perfect.
Come, brothers! Let hell tremble before our might!
Oh yeah, the battle still continues. You can see Sentinel soldiers going up against Hell soldiers, giant mechs fighting massive demons. I mean, the mech stabs the demon with a massive staff, and a dragon is burning this guy's face off. I cannot ask for more. The arenas here also sell the battle, with Barons of Hell, Tyrants, Hell Knights. It's insane. But it also gets easier with the last upgrade to the Sentinel Hammer, where it has an increase of dazing. Yeah, this thing is just overkill, and I love it. Still, the upgrades don't ruin this level as it's still chaotic. That's also thanks to one of the most intense tracks in the entire game, Hell's Army. David Levy created an intense metal track that I think even Mick Gordon would appreciate. two DLCs really show Holsho and Levy know what they're doing, and if they'll be back for the next Doom game, I think we'll be in good hands. As we continue the level, we finally get the last new enemy, and yes, I mean new, the Demonic Trooper. It has an amazing design with a fantastic looking weapon. The codex says that the enemy cannot be chainsawed or glory killed, so with all this hype, what happened? They're the weakest enemy in the entire game. Even the fodder zombies have more health. And I'm serious, they do. For what I said in the beginning, these guys are one of the only new enemies. And they end up like this? Why though? I cannot ask for more. Okay, I kind of do. Because this final part is kind of underwhelming. Just an overdrive perk with a ton of shotgun ammo, all the while surrounded by stone imps. Kind of weird that this was the arena before the final boss.
You're approaching the Dark Lord Sanctum. Starting to lose my connection though. Doomslayer, sir. I won't be able to...
Violence and war to thwart the Dark Realm. But conflict was born in Hell. It is inevitable. A fire that fuels creation and gives purpose where there is none.
The Dark Lord. Oh, dear God. The goddamn Dark Lord. The Dark Lord fight was one that I genuinely hated. I remember vividly, I was able to get to the final boss on the first day of the DLC coming out, but the final phase made me so frustrated that I just quit. Then I got the fight done later that night. To put it simple, I'm pretty sure I felt like what game reviewers thought when fighting the Marauder for the first time. But like the Marauder, the Dark Lord is kind of easy. Well, not easy honestly, but a lot better to go up against than you think. The Dark Lord acts very similar to the Marauder, even to how you stagger it to do damage. His arsenal is pretty deadly. He can of course sword slash, but he can also shield bash you, launch bombs, and later on summon specters of enemies. The thing that makes this fight way more dangerous than the Marauder is that any physical attack, by that I mean the sword slash and the shield bash, can heal him. So yeah, he's kind of annoying. This is actually a pretty intense fight, but to stop and give a bit of lore dump, the Dark Lord, whose name is actually Devoth, was the first being created by the Father.
For too long have I been imprisoned by my own creations. You will not stop my vengeance, nor the one who betrayed me. Tell him.
He is the first being, and my creator. When he fell, I ascended.
Davith would do anything to take back what the Father created, which is why Hell is always invading. That's actually really cool. But no matter the reason, we end up on the final phase, and it's actually pretty cool.
As all things were made by my hand, so shall they be unmade, starting with you.
I said he summoned some specters in the final phase, but I learned that if you can actually save your BFG, because honestly it's pretty useless against the Dark Lord, you can take him out pretty easily. Also, something I actually learned recently is that using the rocket launcher's lock-on with a mastery mod is actually really fantastic for damage. But after all of that, the Slayer finally defeats Davith in the Igmore Sanctum. As a massive surprise to me when I first played the DLC, the Slayer takes off his helmet, and he does one of the coolest ways to kill off a boss.
Strike him down.
With that done, the Dark Lord is defeated. His life sphere is broken, and every demon outside of hell has vanished. But unfortunately, the Divinity Machine, which was the thing that gave the Slayer his strength, and I assume the Dark Lord's energy was used in the machine, takes a toll on the Slayer as he collapses.
By his hand, all things were made. Even you.
The last thing we see is the Slayer being sealed once again by the Seraphs. He will only be awakened once he's needed. I feel like my attitude overall was kind of in the mixed area. The ending though left me with a positive note. That's how I would describe this DLC. A bit of a mixed slash decent opening with an insane and fantastic climax slash ending. But I can see why people were not so positive with this DLC. I don't know if it's because of the story, since I thought everything with the Dark Lord was great, but the addition of the hammer, the level design, the enemy additions, this really felt like it was made for the people who found part 1 incredibly difficult. As for me, I like the inclusion of the Sentinel hammer, but it felt way too much of a crutch in the end. I think things like the stun works incredibly well as a way to increase a boss's damage with a Marauder, but it should probably also have a short stun to some of the other enemies. Also, the fact that it can drop health and ammo makes the chainsaw sometimes feel kind of useless. Even with that, I thought the Ancient Gods Part 2 was a satisfying finale that makes me really wonder what would the next game be based on. Maybe taking on the beings that made Davith? I don't know. But what I can say is that I cannot wait to see what's next. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'm gonna get real for a second. I am genuinely so surprised with how well the Doom Eternal videos have been received and how many people have actually watched them. Like, right now I'm looking at it, 1.6 thousand views? How? I cannot say how happy I truly am with how this turned out. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do next. Maybe my next set of videos would be Gears of War, since I have a lot to talk about with those games, but whatever happens, I hope to see you there. Anyways, have a great day, everyone.
Have my hammer. Bonk everything you see.